listening to my intuition, which is the way that my higher self communicates to me, listening to that intuition when I feel guided to follow that guidance, because it's all well and good to hear something but not necessarily follow through with it. But I've found that if I do follow my guidance, I always end up in the right place at the right time doing the right thing. So I stay human and also connected to the divine, and that to me is living fully.
Welcome to the Live, Love, Survive, Thrive podcast that helps you embrace life's challenges, grow through adversity, and discover your true potential. I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly Hubinet, anti-aging dentist, widow, author, and inspirational coach. I live by the Can I philosophy, constant and never-ending improvement, and I'm here to help you do the same. Each week, we'll dive into real conversations, powerful stories, and practical tools to help you heal, grow, and thrive. Whether you're rebuilding after loss or ready to step into a more purposeful life, this space is for you. Let's grow, evolve, and thrive together. Hi, everybody. Dr. Kimberly Hubinet here of Live, Love, Survive, Thrive. Today is a special day, and I know every day I say it's a special day, but we do have a really unique guest here, and she's experienced a lot of different things in her life, which led her to this type of situation and what she's going to talk to us about. And, honestly, I don't know if I could thrive after everything that she's been through, but it's very interesting. And I want you to sit down, relax, and, just open your mind and open your ears to this. This is Isabella Young. She's a young, pioneering educator and truth seeker whose life journey is nothing short of extraordinary. Okay? From founding one of Australia's first therapeutic outdoor education programs to surviving personal tragedy, occult entrapment, and profound loss, Isabella's path has been one of deep transformation and radical awakening. You heard it, folks, all of that. Now, thriving in Kauai, she shares her hard-earned wisdom through books, art, natural healing to help others reclaim their sovereignty and inner strength. Isabella offers raw and illuminating look at healing, empowerment, and soul evolution through nature, truth, and unwavering spiritual resilience. This is a really interesting topic, folks, so let's welcome Isabella. Hi, Isabella.
Hi, Dr. Kimberly. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be a guest on your podcast. It's so important to be sharing information that can help people at the moment. There's a lot of people who are suffering, and there are a lot of tools and practices and medicines that are available that can help through this time. And so your podcast and the work you're doing is really important.
Yeah, so, we're kind of going to have you create your presence here and tell us, I'm sure it hurts every time you talk about it, but tell us a little bit about your background and what happened to you.
I'll start when it got really bad. I was married to my soulmate, and he really opened me to the world beyond the five senses. I was raised by a devout atheist mother with a narcissistic personality disorder who had me believing that all there was to life was just what was perceivable through the five senses. And when I met this man, we started basically a spiritual path together. We meditated together. We did Tantra. We did shamanic journeying, and gave me books to read like Autobiography of Yogi. And that really kickstarted me on my spiritual path. And we were together for 7 years. We had a son who was 3 years old, and I was pregnant with our second child when he went off to work. He was working in the corporate field using outdoor adventure activities for team building. He was actually the first person to do that in Australia. And he started a new company, went off to work for the first day of his job. And I got a knock on the door about 10 o'clock from the local policeman and a neighbor to tell me that he died suddenly, which completely destroyed my dreams of a family. We were living on a farm working towards self-sufficiency, and I just knew all my future dreams were done. And that just catapulted me into wanting to leave, actually. I just wanted to die. The pain was so excruciating. But I couldn't because I had a child and I was pregnant, so that wasn't an option. So I spent a number of years just like clawing onto life to try and find a reason to be here, and then what the hell I was gonna do, because I couldn't keep running the farm. So I moved around a lot and ended up in a community where I did a course called Dying to Live. It was a shamanic journeying course where we prepared for death, which was just a guided meditation experience. But beforehand, we were stayed in the darkness and in silence most of the time until we came together, and then we basically prepared for the death by writing a eulogy, writing a will, writing letters of forgiveness, and if one knew there was a day one was going to die,
And
and I
you
had this.
you found this. You found these people.
Yeah. It was a community where I birthed my daughter. I had a home birth, and actually it was not even a home birth, it was like a bush birth, and they really supported me through the early stages of grieving, and this course was really part of that process of recovering from the loss of my husband. And during that experience, I went out of body. Just flew through galaxies and actually met my husband who'd passed away and some other beings. And I got information about the next steps of my life. And that was to go and start like training with this individual who I'd never met. I had heard of him. He was from America. And at that time, he was presenting himself as a trance channel, which is when one opens to disembodied spirits or higher beings or ascended masters or whatever and brings forth information. So when I came back into my body and finished the course, I called him up and he said, come and to America. And so I left my two children with my mother and went there for a month. And in that time, we got married, which I know sounds bizarre at this point, but that felt like the right thing to do because once Barry died, I kept hearing heal and serve, heal and serve. So I felt I was doing what I felt was healing. And I also felt like I was serving the highest good. So that was the next step for me.
Can you tell me, slow down a bit? I kind of need to understand. You found this guru thing guy and you married him.
Mhm.
So there were more than one wife to this guy?
No, no,
No.
no, just one wife, just me.
Okay. But why did he choose you instead of somebody else? Because wasn't he like a popular person?
No, he wasn't really very popular, and he still isn't. He's like a minor guru. He doesn't have a big following. Why did he choose me? I don't know. He said that when he saw me, God said, "There's behold your wife," or something like that.
Okay. And you were with
So
him for how long?
I was with him for 7 years
Mm.
after that, and we had sex one time, and I got pregnant, and he never touched me again after that. And he'd been living a life as a gay man before we were married. And he told me that he'd healed all his issues and whatever, but apparently that didn't include me. So we had 3 children. We were living in what looked like a normal home on a cul-de-sac in Southern California. And there were disciples, because by this time he's decided that he's the Messiah. He's the second coming and he's here to save humanity. And he's got disciples who are helping him with his mission. And that really, I can see how I fitted into this plan of his because I was vulnerable. I wanted a family because I'd lost a family. I wanted a spiritual teacher because I really did understand that guru disciple relationship and I did want to be guided. So it was a perfect fit.
And you
And it
lost
was,
your husband prior, plus how did you lose your child? You didn't actually.
well, I haven't got to that point yet.
Oh,
So we were
okay.
living in this, what I thought was an ashram with my guru, but it was a cult. And he was controlling everyone's everything. When we got up, when we went to bed, what we ate, what we did with our time, and all of it was focused around him and meeting his needs and financing him while he actually lived a promiscuous gay lifestyle. Because while I was celibate, he wasn't. He was raping the men in the cult and he was grooming the boys. And after 7 years of this living hell where he handed out punishments and was emotionally abusive, and it was just a nightmare. My son came home from school one day. He was 15 years old and he was really upset and he didn't want to talk about what it was and went to bed. And I said, I will talk about it in the morning. And in the morning, he was gone. And we called around all his friends and couldn't find him, reported him missing by that afternoon because it was highly unusual for him. And the next day, the cult leader sent out his assistant to look for my son in an area behind the house. And he was found with a knife wound to his neck and the kitchen knife beside his body. And that was framed and presented to the police and the cult community that he'd taken his life because he found out he was gay and that he knew that would be unacceptable to me and the rest of the community, which is just pure evil. The whole thing was evil. I once again I wanted to die after that. I just did not even want to take another breath. That was absolutely excruciating. I spent 6 months just going like breath to breath to breath. But once again, I had children and I didn't feel that was fair for them to be motherless in addition to losing their brother. So I went along to see this guy who'd been the cult counselor, because in addition to having all this, meetings with the guru to deal with our woundedness, because we were also broken, we were supposed to go and see the counselor, but I never did because I was, in some ways, a very disobedient disciple, got lots of consequences because there were just so many things wrong with so many hypocrisies and all that. So I finally did go to see this guy and I walked in to see him and he said, I knew you'd come and see me one day and you're in a cult, don't you? And I said, no, I didn't know I was in a cult. I thought I was in an ashram with my guru. And he said, go home and Google cult characteristics and then you'll see what's going on. So I did that and, went down the list of charismatic leader who controls everyone's everything, all about love bombing, where, I'm told that I'm the wife of Christ. The next minute I'm the Antichrist. There's the hate bombing where I'm just
Why would he help you?
this guy,
Yeah.
because he had his own epiphany. He'd come to see that this cult leader was full of it, was just a fraud, a liar, and not who he said he is. So that's why he'd helped me. Yeah, he had a breakthrough himself. So once I went through the list, I got to understand what gaslighting is, which is basically, and I'm just going to use this one word one time, it's basically mindfuckery, where you get told one thing that you get, lied to, and something happened that never happened, something that was said that was never said. And that goes on all day, every day until, well, for me, I lost my connection to my intuition and my higher power. And it made me crazy because I, didn't know what was true and what was not.
And
Went
you were
through,
the wife of this person.
yeah. And what I learned is actually I was the beard of this person. And so a beard is like me, who's in a relationship with someone, a man who's a closet gay at this point. And so he brought me into his game in order to present himself as like a family man, a good father, a good husband and all that. But that was just a front. And so I was the beard. I've learned a lot of what happened afterwards. Like I didn't know that he was raping the men in the cult. I didn't know that he was grooming the boys. And I didn't know that my son was murdered. He didn't commit suicide. He was murdered in order to stop a cult leader being exposed as a pedophile.
Did you ever figure out who actually?
Yeah, I know. I know who did it. But now it's too late. And I don't want to put the time and energy into proving it. He had my son's body cremated after, a day. He was a spin doctor, so he told the police one story. The police didn't even interview the last person to see my son. And when I contacted the police more recently, there's just not enough evidence. The witnesses are now getting older. They don't trust themselves. And so I know. I know what happened, and he knows what happened. He's responsible. I'm supposed to say allegedly, but I know it was him.
Yeah. So what was the moment that
Summer's supposed to be the easy season. So why are so many people quietly Googling a therapist between summer Fridays? Because more daylight doesn't fix the hard stuff. Sometimes it just turns the volume up. Grow does therapy differently. Therapy is not only for when you're in crisis. Grow Therapy is here for all the moments when you decide you want more. More support, more clarity, more tools. Mental health isn't a destination you reach, it's something you build, and Grow makes that easier. Grow connects you with thousands of high-quality licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. The therapist you want takes your insurance on Grow. Grow accepts over 125 insurance plans. Sessions average $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
defined the fact that shifted you to get out of there?
It was going through that checklist of the cult characteristics. And I just want to say that often people say that you shouldn't tell someone that they're in a cult. But my advice is tell them, but tell them in a way that they can receive that information. Like apparently my parents knew a year after I left Australia, because I went from Australia to the US. They knew a year after I left Australia because they went to see a cult expert, but no one said anything to me. No one. No one ever said, you know, you're in a cult, don't you? And admittedly, at the start, I was batshit crazy, so probably wouldn't have received that information. But at some point, if you can present the information in a way that's like factual, so present photographs like of him on hooking up with his Tinder dates or going to the gym, and present the financial auditing so I can see that he's taking money from the account for himself, you know, present factual information rather than just saying, oh, you're in a cult, because that can be, especially being in the cult, that was, you know, one of the words that was continuously like reminded that we weren't a cult. Everyone else was. Every other person claiming to be the second coming is a fraud, but he's not. So there's a lot of mind control and brainwashing that goes on that's very hard to undo. But at least by telling someone that there's something very cultish about the organization or the relationship or the team or the political party or whatever, or the social movement, it can at least sow the seed. So it was going through that checklist that woke me up to the reality. And then I had to get out because that wasn't so easy. He had me like controlled by saying he would never let me leave without my daughter. And by law, I wasn't supposed to leave further than 2 hours drive away from him in California. So I was kind of trapped a bit like that because I didn't even want to stay in the States anymore. I really wanted to just leave. But he also, on a spiritual level, he told me that, and this is what he tells everyone, that you've lived thousands, 10,000s of lifetimes and crawled over football fields of broken glass to get to me. And this is your destiny. This is your sole purpose. So if you turn your back on me, you will be turning your back on God and yourself and your soul mission. But he also added to that if you leave, you will be cursed. So he told me that if I left, my other two children would end up dead, you know, with needles in their arms or whatever. And that's what he told a lot of people. Like there were a lot of threats and blackmail. So I had to push through all that. Because my spiritual path, my service to God he knew that. He knew that was my reason for breathing, basically.
He was predator.
Yeah.
You.
All cult leaders are human predators.
Would you, though, if you hadn't have lost your husband, the first husband, would you say that was the reason how you put yourself in a situation that you were vulnerable to this
Yeah.
type of a person?
Yeah, I was a fluffy little bunny in the jaws of a wolf. I was so vulnerable. I was so lost.
Yeah. Because I want to, bring us back to the grief part. bring us
Yeah.
back, because my people that listen to the podcast are interested in your grief part of the journey. And I know that it's really important to you to tell about your cult part, but I don't want to run out of time as far as what it is that how you got out and basically, how did that shape from your grief journey with losing a husband early on, then losing your son, and now bringing you back to what you do now today?
Well, it's basically been, like decades of grieving that has led me to through that experience, and then here I am today. I still grieve. It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's something to understand about grief, to not expect this bullshit of closure. I think that's so misleading, because
Mm-hmm.
how can you close your heart to, your child or your partner? Because I know that consciousness is continuous. And it was only when I got to a certain point of realizing that while they weren't here in the physical, they were still around me. And once I got to that point, once I got through the worst of the pain, then now I can feel them and hear them. So the process to get to that point involved a lot of tears, a lot of screaming, a lot of rage. I did a lot of breath work. I popped vessels in my eyes from my anger and rage that I'd been left, to be a single mother, because I never wanted to be a single mother. So the process continues to, unfold. It just gets less in intensity. Obviously, I'm not raging like I used to, but tears are right there beneath the surface. And I think it's really important to just allow those emotions to move through, because emotions are energy in motion. And if we do hold the emotions back, then it can create physical and mental illnesses. So it's important to be vulnerable, obviously not to be expressing rage in a way that affects any other living being. There are ways to emote that don't include, you know, dumping all your anger onto another person.
Mm-hmm.
I screamed a lot into pillows and towels. I in my car with the windows up, I would just scream and say what I wanted to say in the way that I wanted to say it when no one else could hear it. But it was emotions in me that needed to come out. I do a lot of gardening and put those emotions into the ground. The earth will transmute those emotions. You can bash up cardboard boxes with baseball bats. There's exercise, writing and burning, where you just write streams of consciousness and then you can burn it and that will be transmuted. So I used a lot of those practices in order to keep the emotions moving and not shy away from whatever's coming up, just being really responsible for the way that I express. And it's also valid to talk to people, and it's helpful to be held while you cry, and be reassured. So,
I
you know,
appreciate your vulnerability and the rawness of this interview because, it's hard for people to, express themselves and maybe they don't want people to know that how they're really feeling, Like oftentimes in our culture they say, "Oh, how are you?" And most people just say, "Oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm fine." Is that really true, right?
the other thing that happens a lot in this culture is I see it all the time where people apologize for their tears. It's so bad to do that. I mean, crying is medicine, whether it's crying tears of sadness or tears of happiness. It's really important to let the river flow. And, that creates vulnerability, but it's also such an important part of the healing process. Like crying tears are medicine. So I'm not going to apologize for my tears.
And everything that happened in your life shaped the way that you help people now. So even though that you went through all this in your life, wouldn't you say that that's part of your journey that,
Yeah.
now what are you doing now? How are you helping people? And, and it reshaped the way Well, your experience with grief reshaped your view of life, purpose, and even identity?
For sure. I understand myself as being a soul, a spiritual being who's come into this body, this life, in order to evolve. And everything that I've experienced has contributed to that, regardless of how it looked or felt or whatever. So everything has been necessary or something that I've chosen. I'm not a victim, whether it's the death or the murder or whatever, that they're all part of my soul journey, my soul evolution. And one of the things that I've learned is that, and it's not just, it's a saying, but that suffering is the gateway to wisdom. So as I was saying to you before we started, I don't suffer all the time now like I used to. I used to claw at my wrists and wonder why me, and I know I'm a good person, but all this shit's happening to me. And now I know that it wasn't happening to me, but it was happening for me. And not only that, but I wanted, chose, and created all of it. And that's a hard thing for people to accept but I know it's true for me. And that's made a big difference to move out of the suffering and the grief to, take ownership for what's happened.
So
And people,
knowing at that point or not knowing that you actually, were responsible for it, right? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, I'm saying that on the highest level of my soul evolution, this lifetime, it is serving me in that process. So everything that's happened and is happening is to forward me in my soul evolution journey. I think that this physical embodiment, this earthly lifetime is extremely challenging. And it's through those challenges that we do expand our consciousness, expand our heart. I think that you would be able to understand this, that it's a Rumi saying that it's through the cracks that the light comes in. Our heart gets well, for me, my heart got macerated, not just cracked open, just put in a blender and all that. And then but through that process, I'm able to now receive more light. I sun gaze every day, and light, that's the highest the highest information that we can receive is through light, sunlight. And it's higher consciousness, it's life optimizing information, it's activates dormant DNA and all that. And I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't got into that place of just complete darkness and hopelessness.
Can you share with us what practices, habits, or people supported your transformation the most?
The most important practices that I do are to spend as much time as possible in nature every day. And that starts from the ground up. Like when I got out of the cult and came to Hawaii, one of the first things I had to do was calm my nervous system because I was just fried and I didn't even know who I was or where I was. So I had to get bare feet on the earth. It's known as grounding, but it's actually one of the most essential practices that we need to do as human beings. We need to be directly connected to Earth. Earth is a giant battery. It's also Earth has healing energy too. So I sat bare feet on the earth. I really have not worn shoes more than wearing shoes for the last 18 years since I've been here. I stay connected to the earth. You can also wear grounding shoes, which are shoes made of leather, or sometimes people have that woven material you can wear that are conductive. So if you don't want to wear bare feet, you can still receive earth energy. Walking on sand, walking on wet grass, that's ideal. You can also just go outside, sit on your back steps and put your feet on bricks or concrete. That's also conductive. But the best thing is to be relaxed so you can lie on the earth. And then once we're in a relaxed state, that's when we receive the most because there's nothing, in the way to block what's being received. So I'm just aware that I'm receiving and then giving thanks and then, going about my day after that. So spending as much time as possible directly connected to the earth or just out in nature. And you don't have to really be doing anything, just sitting there with your back against a tree. That whole tree hugging thing, it's not hippie woo woo stuff. It's actually really powerful because trees are connected to the earth. So if you touch a tree, I walk past trees and I touch leaves or put my hand against the branch or the bark or the trunk. and receive the energy of the plant that way. So that grounding is essential. Can't expect to be an optimally healthy, happy, balanced human being without that earth energy. And the other practice that I do that's been the most life-changing is sun gazing. So every morning when just as the sun rises or when the sun sets, I gaze gently at the sun and receive the light through my eyes into my brain, pineal gland and pituitary gland. And I don't know what it does. It's way beyond my level of understanding right now, but it's healing, expands my perception of reality so that now I can see the bigger picture. I can see like what's happening on the world stage. I can understand, where we are in our human evolutionary process. It also dissolves cognitive dissonance and helps basic things like repattern your sleep cycle because that's one of the things that happens with grief and trauma is that sleep becomes a challenge or else there's oversleeping or whatever, to avoid. But the light of the sun will help to basically help the body to recalibrate and function optimally. That's the best way I can put it. So in addition to sun gazing, I spend time just like watching the clouds or watching the waves or watching how the wind moves through the trees or watching ants go about their day or birds or whatever. Just connect to nature. Listen to the sound of the birds is that they have a sound that does a lot of things that we don't really understand. They're not just chirping away there. They've got their own magic. So if you can't get out in nature every day, bring nature indoors. I can see, you've got plants. I have plants inside so that I'm surrounded by that nature because it's what keeps us human, really. We're part of nature. It's not just humans and nature. We are nature. When I lived in the city, I played sounds of nature. So I played rain falling or ocean waves or dolphins and whale songs or jungle sounds or whatever. So we're living in a time where people have been intentionally disconnected from nature. So we're not getting natural light. The sun's been vilified. People don't want to go outside because it's dangerous or whatever. That's really, really deadly. It's deadly to have that life view. So connect to nature as much as possible for as long as possible every day. That includes eating foods that don't advocate a raw food diet, but at least be eating some raw foods that are as close as possible to when they came out of the ground, because those foods contain light energy, photonic energy, and that's what invigorates us, activates us, heals us, optimizes us. So when we eat living foods, everyone can sprout sprouts and just eat a handful of sprouts every day, whether it's mung beans, lentils, broccoli, sprouts, whatever it is. So eat living foods or foods as close as possible to being picked from the ground and as local as possible. So then we get the imprint of the local energies, which is even more beneficial. Drink pure water, not tap water, not bottled water. If you can get spring water, that's optimal. And if you can't, then put the water out into the sun before you drink it. Then it receives light from the sun. That optimizes it. Then you can bless it, ask that it optimizes you, and then drink that. And that's going to be healing and invigorating. And yeah, that's just some of the few practices that I use to connect to nature. Because like I said, we are being disconnected. Most people are living life through black screen technologies now rather than through nature. And it's very dehumanizing. We're not receiving natural light. We're getting the blue light or whatever, that it's not really good for us. Plus it's got it's addictive and taking us out of life and putting us into this like virtual realities when children aren't learning how to read faces or play or be human.
Oh, I totally agree.
Right? Because they're relating more to screens. So as we go outdoors, take children outdoors, let them play, let them have free play, let them explore, let them get dirty, let them learn about the natural world, because otherwise where's humankind heading?
Yeah,
If we're not connected
I'm
to
so
nature.
glad that you're talking about this because I actually have a wellness retreat that I do 3 times a year, June, July, and August. Since this area is like really nice at this point, I take people out into the wilderness and I tell them it's the 5 senses that we're learning to discover in ourselves. And it's so interesting that you're talking about this because not that I do it the way you do, but we do in my class do the 5 sense, the smelling, the seeing, the touching, the feeling, the eating, the smelling, those kind of
Yeah.
things.
Right. Thank you for doing that work. It's so important. Nature's really the best medicine. It's important that people understand that.
Basically, so we talked about the practices. We talked about the things that you do.
Are you noticing your car insurance rate creep up even without tickets or claims? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry handles the legwork by comparing quotes side by side from over 50 top insurers so you can confidently hit buy. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Jerry even tracks rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Don't settle for higher rates. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/libsyn today. That's jerry.ai/libsyn.
And we talked about your life. So to wrap it up, can you tell us how they can get a hold of you and give me a little bit more about your live, love, survive, thrive theory? Because this is live, love, survive, thrive. And, I want my listeners to hear how you've lived, loved, survive, and thrive. And then also tell us how they can reach you.
For me, to be living, loving, surviving, and thriving is to be living fully as a human being. So to be spending as much time in nature as possible, doing human things, whether that's cooking or cleaning or gardening, dancing, playing music, listening to music, helping neighbors, having conversations with other human beings, sharing food, celebrating events, just being a human being and also being a divine human being. So staying connected to God, my higher self, higher power, whatever you want to call it, all that is infinite intelligence, and listening to my intuition, which is the way that my higher self communicates to me, listening to that intuition when I feel guided to follow that guidance, because it's all well and good to hear something but not necessarily follow through with it. But I've found that if I do follow my guidance, I always end up in the right place at the right time doing the right thing. So I stay human and also connected to the divine, and that to me is living fully. And how people can connect with me is through my YouTube channel, which is Feeling Better Naturally. Could leave a comment in the comment section. That'd be great. And also I have a Substack, Feeling Better Naturally. And my website is feelingbetternaturally.love. And there's a contact section on there that people can reach out through that part of the website. And my email is my name, Isabella Young, number 19 @gmail.com.
Wonderful. Thank you for so much of your sharing and thoughtfulness about this. And, folks, there's a lot more to Isabella that we just scratched the surface. So I hope that you will contact her if you have a chance and maybe she can help you through things. I know that, she does her type of healing and, contact her. This is really big stuff. On the last note that we have, I always like to end with, do you have a special recipe or something maybe that is a natural healing type of a thing that you can share with our listeners that maybe can help them grow and respond and, help them with nature healing?
Yes, I do. And this is something that I make and eat often, and it's a recipe that will help you stay grounded and connected to the earth. It's so simple. It's just basically chopping up a whole lot of root vegetables, potatoes, carrots, beets, anything that grows under the ground. Rudolf Steiner explains that those vegetables are going to help us with grounding, obviously, and the fruits in the trees help us more with our spiritual path. So cut up a whole lot of root vegetables. You can put in some garlic or onions or rosemary or whatever, make them into little cubes, like 1 inch by 1 inch, and bake them in the oven for 40 minutes or whatever till they're crispy and brown. And that is, you can put some balsamic vinegar on it if you like, but just the baked vegetables, they get all sweet and crispy, and they will help you stay connected to the earth energy.
Do you
Roasted
grow all your
vegetable.
vegetables?
No, I
No.
wish I did. That was my intention back before my husband passed away. And it's always been my vision, but it doesn't seem that I grow some. I sprout sprouts, and I grow kale. That's the thing with plants. You don't have to have a whole lot to, be sourced by them. So even just putting a few leaves of kale in my smoothies means that my kale plants are giving me medicine that's specific to me. So I do that.
Nice.
I do. I just want to say that the best way to tap into the information that I have been gifted with, that I've been able to access, and I know this is my book, New Human of New Earth. It's got hundreds of natural medicines and practices and tools and information that can help anyone through this time. There's so much suffering going on. We are going through a paradigm shift. There's a lot of change. Unless we are connected to the earth, the changes that are going on around us in the light frequencies will, as you can imagine, shake people around a lot more. But if you're rooted into the earth, then the changes that are happening to the earth as well. And so we're more aligned with those changes. It's not that we're not totally immune, but we're more able to, roll with the changes, move with the change rather than be tossed around and, ungrounded.
Yeah. Well, this has been a lovely session and episode. I hope that the listeners will take us up on having to be able to meet with you or contact you. And, this is summer, guys. We are here in the great summer, June, July, August. Go out there, go into nature,
Go camping.
go do all of this. Go find things to do outside instead of being on your computer or TV. Take your kids out and
Your
go
kids,
walk
yeah.
around,
Hmm.
So wonderful meeting you, and get her book if you have a chance. Look on her website and just learn. Learn. There's everything out there in nature that we can learn and feel and smell. And if you're out in Sonoma County, come to one of my events. If you're in Hawaii, go see Isabella. Just go out and live. Just
Right.
live, love, survive, thrive, everybody. And I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly Hubinet. And let's say bye for now and see you soon. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Live, Love, Survive, Thrive. I hope our time together has inspired you to embrace life's challenges, find the courage to overcome obstacles, and create a life filled with love, purpose, and fulfillment. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback means the world to me, and to help us continue to bring you stories and tools to empower your journey. And if you have a story of resilience, transformation, or thriving after adversity, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me directly at livelovesurvivethrive@gmail.com. You never know, your story might just be the inspiration someone else needs to hear. To learn more about me and my work, visit my website at www.drkimberlyhubinet.com. While you're there, be sure to check out my current book, Grid. Once in a lifetime, you get to start over. A guide to rebuilding and rediscovering life after loss. Get a sneak peek at my upcoming book, Live, Love, Survive, Thrive, a powerful companion to this podcast, and a heartfelt roadmap to reclaiming joy, resilience, and meaning after life's toughest seasons. You can also connect with me on social media. Follow me on Facebook at author Dr. Kimberly Hubinet, and follow me on Instagram with the same name. And subscribe to my YouTube channel at Live, Love, Survive, Thrive for more inspiration and insights. Remember, you have the power within you to write your story and thrive beyond your wildest imaginations. Keep relearning to live, love, survive, thrive every single day. Until next time, I'm Dr. Kimberly Hubinet, and this is Live, Love, Survive, Thrive.
Most people overpay for car insurance, not because they're careless, but because switching feels like too much hassle. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/Libsyn today. That's JERRY.ai/LIBSYN.
That refresh you've been putting off until the right deal came along? It's here! Wayfair's Black Friday and July sale is happening now, so you can finally get the style you've been waiting for less. Get up to 80% off area rugs and up to 60% off outdoor and bedroom furniture. Shop Wayfair's huge selection of styles and find the piece to fit your style, budget, and space. Plus, free shipping. Black Friday in July ends July 27th. Shop today at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.